With that, welcome you inside the Friday walkthrough edition of Big Ten Today, presented by Gatorade. Rick Pizzo, Dave Wanstead here in studio. I know there's been a lot of talk the last couple of weekends. You had Indiana, Oregon, you had big-time games involving Illinois and Ohio State previous weeks. I think this could potentially be the most impactful weekend, at least as it relates to the Big Ten and the college football playoff moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because we talked about how many teams will probably be eliminated. You hate using that word this early, but really, when you start talking about 2 or 3 losses, you're probably out of it. Some of the teams are going to be in that situation.
The only constant, however, in sports and certainly in college football is change, and our opinions will likely change over the next couple of weeks. Speaking of constants, Ross Dellinger is constantly working. He's either posting articles on head coach openings or equity investments or worried about the weekend schedule. Ross, welcome to the show, the man who gets no sleep but plenty of caffeine.
Yes, plenty of caffeine. Second cup already this morning. Good to be on with you guys today. And yes, it's like it's playoff football time, right? The weather's like getting cooler out. It feels like that elimination time, like Coach mentioned earlier.
Hey, we all got to play hurt this time of the year. Once you're 7-8 weeks in, nobody is fully healthy. Let's take a look at the big board. It is our big story as you start to look ahead to another 9-game weekend. Now, unlike last week, one Big Ten team does have a bye. Illinois doesn't play this weekend. That means that somebody has to go out of conference. And if you look bottom right, it is USC and Notre Dame, one of the most historic rivalries in all of college football, and a massive game for both teams. Dave mentioned it. Teams with 2 losses already. You lose again, maybe you're eliminated. That could be the case for Notre Dame. And USC kind of quietly, Ross, in the weeds here. They're top 20. They have a chance to pick up a massive road win. The one loss is not going to be damaging at all because it's against a really good team. This is a huge game for Lincoln Riley and the Trojans.
It really is. And, you talk about a road win over a Notre Dame team that, let's just be honest, they probably started with 2 of the most difficult opponents of any two-game start to the season, the Irish. I was actually covered both of them, A&M and in Miami. But they've come a long way since those losses. And those certainly aren't bad losses for the Irish. And Hurricanes and Aggies might be 2 of the best teams. And C.J. Carr, Notre Dame's freshman quarterback, or first-year starting quarterback, is somebody that certainly USC is going to have to slow down. He has played really, really well, and the Irish are kind of getting better and better as the weeks go on. He's been throwing for over 300 yards a game. They've got, preseason Heisman favorite Jeremiah Love at running back as well. And the defense allowed a lot of points. 69 combined points against Miami and A&M to start the year. Since then, they have been really good. Their last 2 outings, they've allowed just a touchdown. So USC has its works cut out for them. That Irish team is really solid. But Jaden Maeva and Mekhi Lemon, right? I mean, those 2 will be able to take advantage of a Notre Dame secondary in a similar way that we saw maybe Miami and Texas A&M do, Coach.
Yeah, you mentioned Jaden Maeva. This is a game. I coached in this game for 3 years when I was at USC, so I understand the importance of the rivalry. But more, in today's world of college football, this is a game that could take a player like Jaden into the Heisman conversation because it's such a national game.
At night, in South Bend, at that historic stadium.
Coach, you're under the spotlight. And this is it's a big game from wins and losses and playoffs and all that. But from a personal standpoint, it's one of those games that everybody will talk about. And it carries a little bit more weight if you perform like that. And Ross mentioned the defense. Marcus Freeman, I'm glad to see, because I know they got a new defense coordinator, Chris Ash, at Notre Dame. And they struggled early. And Marcus Freeman, that's his background. Yep. That's his wheelhouse, his defense. I'm glad to see that he jumped in there, tightened things up a little bit. Because if they don't play defense, obviously
they've gotten better.
They've gotten a lot better
defensively. And what about on the other side? Because USC's defense is going to be tested. C.J. Carr is terrific. Ross mentioned Love, who can hurt you running the football. USC's defense is the one question mark. We never worry about whether USC is going to score enough points. It's can they stop the opposition from scoring too many points.
Yeah, and they're going to have to play. What defense are we going to get? Are we going to get the defense Illinois, the defense Michigan?
That's the question.
That's the question. I mean, they're going to have to play back-to-back physical defense like they did against Michigan. I mean, because, obviously we know the strength of this Notre Dame offense is their running game, and they've got some great backs and a great offensive line. So this is going to be a physical game. Can USC muster it up emotionally, defensively to play back-to-back? But I got to say this, guys. The story of USC's game last week was the running back. I got to look. King Miller was a third-team walk-on running back. The guy, they just started.
Dave, I think they're number 7 now to the depth chart, running back position. That's how deep they are, though. That goes to recruiting as well.
It does, but my question is, how many practice reps did this guy get in practice? As a third-team guy, you're not getting many.
No excuses. It's game day. You get the ball, you run the ball. USC Notre Dame under the lights in South Bend on Saturday night. Now, the Big Ten gets started on Friday night.
Yep.
And much like USC, Nebraska is a team that after its one loss, they had lost to Michigan, was not really being talked about as being a college football playoff team. But Dave, their schedule is very favorable. You get past this game, which could potentially be considered a trap game on the road in Minnesota, and you start to look at what Nebraska has the rest of October and through November, and you start to wonder, are they a team that could be the 4th Big Ten team to get into the playoff?
Yeah, they've obviously, they got a quarterback that can get them there for sure. The amazing thing to me about Nebraska, when I sit back and watch them, how they are closing games out. I mean, they score last week 10. They win the fourth quarter 10-0. And if you looked at the stats, one stat they at -3 in turnover margin against Maryland. How do you win that game unless you are mentally tough and going to finish it? And the one thing that Nebraska is doing, they're doing a really good job of situational football. By that, I mean when they get down in the red zone, they've been getting touchdowns. When they have a third down situation, they've been converting them. So situation football has been excellent. And the mindset, Matt Rule's got them believing now that even if it's even or we're behind in the fourth quarter, we can come back and win. And that's what it is. This league is too tough. You're going to have to win those one-score games in the fourth quarter.
Listen, this offense, and specifically Dylan Raiola, has to be careful because Ross, P.J. Fleck has built his Minnesota program on running the football, being mistake-free, and playing really good defense. Now, they haven't been quite as consistent in all of those regards this year, but defensively with guys like Coy Parrish in the secondary, they're going to try to give Dylan and this Nebraska offense as many different looks and try to confuse him and force him into some of those turnovers that he can be prone to committing.
Yeah, Rick, you mentioned it off the top, first of all, how big this game is. We talk about elimination games, and the Big Ten feels pretty good that they've got 3 playoff teams, right? Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon. But can they get that 4th team? Nebraska, Washington, USC, sort of that group of 3 that you might see are positioning themselves. And so this is a huge one on the road for Nebraska. I think it's been almost 20 years, I want to say, since Nebraska's won back-to-back road games, I believe is the stat. It's something like that, something pretty crazy like that. You look at their schedule, and it sets up pretty nicely. They can make a 10-2 type run here and maybe get into the playoff. But a loss at Minnesota is something you probably don't want on the resume. So they need to find a running game, Coach. Nebraska needs to find a running game, especially on the road. They can't rely solely on Dylan Raiola, but that's been sort of the recipe lately. And the Gophers struggle to score at times, but they are, as you mentioned, Rick, they're good defensively. They're top 30 in the country in total D. So this feels like a fun Friday night matchup, Friday night game here, where the loser, especially if it's Minnesota, certainly is eliminated. But even Nebraska, tough to see them getting into the playoff with a loss at Minnesota.
Yeah, and the Huskers have to find a way to flip the recent trend. Minnesota has won the last 5 meetings in this series. All right, it is almost time for us to get to. So there was some concern about Ryan Day's hiring of Matt Patricia as defensive coordinator, spent most of his time in the NFL. I would say that Day's decision has worked out pretty well so far for the Buckeyes. Ohio State's Silver Bullet defense is ranked in the top 4 nationally in basically every major category. Arvell Reese has turned into an absolute star. That linebacker core is so good. You got Caleb Downs on the back end. And this week, it is a Wisconsin team that is in a ton of trouble. Rick Pizzo back with Dave Wanstead and Ross Dellinger. Ross, this simply seems like one of those games that Ohio State has to show up, make sure they realize there's an opponent on the field across from them, and if they play anywhere close to their ability, they're going to remain unbeaten.
Yeah, it's a rough going for the Badgers, right? 4 straight losses. Now they get the number 1 team in the country. Next week they get the number 8 team in the country out in Oregon, and in this week they have to face Ohio State's defense. And as we saw there, they have been nothing but incredibly spectacular this season under Matt Patricia. Caleb Downs kind of running the show. I visited there actually a couple weeks ago. And visited with Caleb Downs, the safety, and Ryan Day about how they're doing this. And when I mean we're doing what, I'm talking about a historic season opening run defensively. I think one of their first 6 opponents, has scored more than 9 points, Coach. It's been unbelievable. They lead the country in points against, 6.8. Even maybe more impressive, they lead the country in that category by 3 points. It's crazy. I spent some time in Columbus with Caleb and with Ryan Day to try to figure out how they're doing this. And Matt Patricia has a defensive unit that prides itself on pre-snap disguises, in at the snap disguises, or even just post-snap disguises, moving Caleb specifically around. He's kind of the centerpiece of that defense, and to gain an advantage that really Ohio State already has the talent advantage now. And now, Coach, with these disguises and things they're doing, they're having a schematic advantage, and we're seeing what that means, and that means very little points for the opponent.
Yeah, and if they take the ball away, which they did, end up +3 in turnovers, it's even better. But let's talk about the offense real quick. You know what impressed me about the offense was that they were able to score 34 points against Illinois, right? And they really didn't have the big plays. I think they had 1 play over 20 yards. So it was a very, a pedestrian type of offense, completed the passes, ran the ball, balanced, didn't make mistakes. But, up to this point, it was bombs away with those receivers. And they proved to everybody that, hey, we can score points and move the ball and beat you without throwing the ball 50 yards down the field. I think that was impressive to me.
If you're efficient, you don't need to be as explosive. And
Right.
Julian Sayin has been really efficient. 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio,
Wow.
nearly 80% completion percentage so far this year.
Yep.
There were questions about Sayin coming into this year. He has answered pretty much all of them. There was a question about Curt Cignetti, and would he be on the wish list for Penn State? Would he be interested? Well, I think we got our answer on Thursday. Indiana and Sig agreeing to a new 8-year extension designed to keep him in Bloomington through at least 2033. He's making a ton of money. The buyout, of course, increased as well, but most importantly, the Hoosiers know that they have their guy. The Hoosiers also have Michigan State this weekend, a team that is a little bit on the struggle bus, Ross, and it is in Bloomington. Indiana has to worry about one thing, the come down after the Oregon win. Other than that, you certainly expect the Hoosiers to have the advantage in pretty much every phase on Saturday.
Absolutely, yeah. You look at the opponent first, right? And Sparty needs a win real bad. Three straight losses, none of them particularly close. 2 TDs against USC, 11 points. Nebraska, 3 TDs to UCLA at home. If you're Indiana, you gotta be licking the chops, especially when you look at the Spartans defensively. They're allowing huge plays and a lot of points, right? 45, 38, 38. And it just doesn't get any easier because Indiana's offense is humming, right? Cignetti's got that group playing incredibly well, and he's getting financially rewarded for it. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, came in from Cal, playing lights out, 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. IU seems to be responding to every challenge from an opponent offensively, right? Oregon had that pick 6 to tie the game in Eugene last week, and you kind of thought, Well, the old Indiana, right? Typical Indiana underdog on the road to a top 5 team. They're not gonna bounce back from that. And lo and behold, they march right down the field and score. So it's really been impressive what Kirk Cignetti has sort of instilled in that program and that team over the last year and a half. And again, now he's the $90+ million guaranteed contract he's got right ahead of a very busy coaching cycle.
Yeah, I would say one thing real quick, then I want to talk about Kirk. To win big games, your stars need to show up and play big. Surratt leads him in receptions, 8 receptions. Hemby has a big day running the ball. We talked about the quarterback. Aiden Fisher, 13 tackles in the game, a sack and a half. So Kirk's getting his stars to show up and play big. And I want to give Scott Dolson, the AD, some credit. Let me tell you, this is more than just an impact on the athletic program in football. When I was at USC, Rick, I'd take the job and they get the staff down there with the president. And they get us together and they show us videos of USC and the history of it and everything. And at the end, the president gets up and says, "Oh, thanks, guys, for coming down." He walks out. We all start getting up. The vice president says, "Hold on. I want to talk to you guys for a minute." We all sit back down. He says, "Let me make something very clear to you guys. There's a direct correlation between how much money we can raise at this university and how many football games we win. Have a good day. Good luck." Oh, yeah, honest to God now. So this is going to you look what happened
No pressure.
Alabama, Penn State. Yeah. I mean, all of a sudden, so this, by Kirk winning like this is going to have an impact all the way across campus.
And certainly major impact on college football, perhaps for future hires where ADs maybe look at guys like Kirk Cignetti who have been successful at lower levels.
Yep.
They're a little bit older,
yep,
but they come in the transfer portal has made everything different, including the hiring cycle. Much more from Bloomington coming up on Saturday. Big Ten tailgate live from Indiana. 2 full hours to experience the game day excitement surrounding the third-ranked Hoosiers. Fun all begins at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. All right, so we have Oregon and Rutgers is also part of our broadcast schedule coming up on Saturday, the second Big Ten Network game. And Ross, Oregon has to deal with something it hasn't had to deal with in its Big Ten history, and that is a conference loss and how you respond. Yes, of course, they were beaten by Ohio State in the Rose Bowl game, but that wasn't officially a Big Ten conference game. Rutgers has really struggled defensively. So you have to think if you're Dante Moore, Dan Lanning, Will Stein, and that Oregon offense, you're thinking to yourself, this is the opportunity to kind of fix what went wrong a week ago against the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I'm sure they're really excited to get back on the field, right? Every time you experience something like that, probably coach knows you want to get back on the field as soon as possible. First, they'll have to make the journey all the way across the entire country after taking their first loss in conference play. Can they handle that? It's a sort of a real test, it feels like, for Dan Lanning's team. In a game that seems like could be trouble for them, right? After a loss, they're down, going across the country, a long road trip. But look, Rutgers has lost 3 straight. They're sort of reeling. They're backed in a corner. They can score points, though. They're one of the best passing teams in the country, nearly 300 yards a game. It's not going to be easy. They can score with you, and they're at home and all that stuff. But watch Oregon wide receiver DeCorian Moore, and obviously Dante Moore, as you mentioned, Rick, because this Rutgers defense can be really exposed. They're giving up 250 yards in the air a game, one of the worst pass defenses in the country.
When I look at this game, this matchup, this is a little bit of uncharted waters for Dan Lanning. All we talked about was, young team. He's got freshmen scoring touchdowns, freshmen catching passes. Dante Moore's a young player. And young players are going to make mistakes. And I think that's kind of what happened a little bit last week. So now he's got a young football team going across the country and to play good defense. And Ross was talking about this Rutgers offense. I mean, they're going to have to show up and play good defense. You have to be emotionally all in to play good defense. And, there's a lot. This is a different type of a challenge for Dan Lanning. He'll be up for it because don't underestimate, and yes, don't get on me about my man Schiano, but don't underestimate
What did I do?
Greg Schiano, they're not playing good defense. They're not playing good special teams, but they know what they're doing. Be aware of this game. I'm telling you.
You know I love Greg as much as you do. And he's well aware that they're not playing good special teams or good defense. He's the one that's
coaching them. I know.
Each and every day.
I'm just trying to, I'm trying to calm things down here.
Throw me under the bus is what you're doing. Our Saturday football doubleheader does kick off with Purdue and Northwestern. Then Oregon battles Rutgers in prime time. Apparently Dave thinks I'm rooting for the Ducks. It all starts with countdown to kickoff at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific, right here on the Big Ten Network. You can also see it on the Fox Sports. I absolutely love this post coming from Northwestern Athletic Director Mark Jackson. This deep in the bowels of Beaver Stadium. Look at the pure, unadulterated joy on the faces of the Northwestern Wildcats and the man in the middle, head coach David Braun, as NU wins at Penn State for the first time in more than a decade. And we are thrilled that Coach Braun joins us for today's big interview. Dave, welcome in. I know you guys are riding a little bit of a heater, a 3-game win streak right now. We hope to keep the momentum going. Our coaches have done pretty well on this particular weekend after the interview. So I do want to start by taking you back to that moment. What was it like to celebrate a win of that magnitude on the road with your guys?
Yeah, the word special doesn't do it justice. Just an incredible moment with our team. And, all week long we had been talking about, we know who we are. We're going into a hostile environment. It's going to take 4 quarters. We're going to have to weather the storm. We'll face adversity. We're, going up against a very talented Penn State team that had their backs up against the wall. And for our guys not only to win the game, but overcome some adversity along the way and finish it off in the fourth quarter the way that we did. Just a euphoric moment to celebrate with a group of guys that have been working so hard, dating all the way back to January. This is a special group to coach, and it's a fun group to celebrate, wins with. But wins on the road in the Big Ten don't come easy, and it was a pretty energetic locker room postgame.
Yeah, Coach, congratulations on that one, and obviously the 2 before that. So keep the roll going. Let me ask you a question. Following Northwestern football for a long time, it seemed when Northwestern had their best days, the head coach, the athletic director, the administration, the alumni, everybody was kind of aligned in the same, pulling the train in the same direction. Where do you feel your program stands right now with everybody involved?
Yeah, recruiting's the lifeblood of any program. And, when Mark Jackson got hired here, I felt like we landed the biggest 5-star recruit we ever could have in terms of just his leadership, his understanding of what it takes, in the realm specifically around football from his time at USC. And, having Mark's leadership over the course of the last year has had a tremendous positive impact on this football program and all of our student athletes. And in a very chaotic time in college football, you need alignment more than ever. But, Mark's leadership on campus, we're celebrating our 95 Rose Bowl team this weekend, the alumni. You just feel the energy around the program in a really good place. And so thankful to have Mark's leadership and excited of all that is to come, not only this season, but into the future.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Let me ask you something. I think 2 months ago, nobody realized what a talented athletic football team UCLA had. You guys beat them, and you guys didn't miss many tackles, didn't give up many big plays. That catches everybody's attention. And then all of a sudden, you're playing Penn State last week, and I'm watching that game. And your defense, again, I'm all focused on defense right here, how they matched up with the athleticism of UCLA. And then Penn State, you were the most physical team. If you looked at, I'm sitting there watching it saying Northwestern is more physical on defense than Penn State is on offense. And, man, it was impressive. I mean, what would be, from day one, the biggest improvement that you've made on defense to get to where you're at right now?
Yeah, no, thank you, Coach. Ultimately, like, our brand of football we're going to have to turn it into a street fight. We're going to have to win the rushing battle. We're going to have to win the turnover battle. When you turn on the tape, every single Sunday post game, we better be the most physical team on that field each and every week if we plan to win. But it sounds oversimplified, Coach, but where this group has really grown specifically on defense, you see it on the last two plays, those third down, fourth down stop. Yep. It's just guys playing with great leverage, trusting their teammate, and finishing with sound tackling. Tim McGargle, there's no one better in the country in terms of teaching tackling, teaching leverage, teaching ball disruption. We're so fortunate to have Tim leading our defense. And what you've seen is that group continue to improve each and every week. That's something that needs to continue.
I had known about Preston Stone, your quarterback, to transfer, from his SMU days. And that first game was a trap game, if there ever was one, right? I mean, I played down there. I mean, I know what you're getting into at New Orleans, or down in Tulane. But since that game, boy, your guys have done a great job on offense of bringing him along, eliminating the turnovers. You're getting more run-pass combinations. What's kind of turned the light on for him?
I think step one was him and everyone understanding you're not defined by one bad day. And that was a bad day for our football program, a bad day for Preston down at Tulane. But his ability just to reset and get back to work, you should have seen the energy that he had at that Monday practice post-Tulane and then into Tuesday. He was unwavering in his leadership and the way that he goes through his process. And I think Preston has started to understand, especially in this league and who we are as a football team, ultimately he doesn't have to win the game for us on every single play. He just needs to be himself. And what I know about Preston Stone, he's accurate, he processes well. There's so many qualities that he possesses, but the most important factor that separates him is that dude is a winner. He's a winner in everything that he does. All you have to do is come watch our 2-minute drills on Wednesday and see Preston operate in that space. He's a winner. And, as long as we can continue to put him in a position where he doesn't feel like he has to press and he's just playing within rhythm and playing within the offense, that dude's going to find a way to win a ton of football games.
My last question, a little fun one. Curtis Shaner, does he do any work for you at his role with equipment guy, David? I got to ask, I'm telling you, I was at Oklahoma State with Curtis. I'm probably dating myself a little bit. But we were so bad down there, and we had no money. Curtis was the equipment guy. He dragged the bags out. I think we used him as a scout team player. I mean, he was just out of college. He was a young kid. I remember guys blocking him. And he's 32 years at Northwest. Can he even drag a bat? Does he do any? How's Curtis? What's my man doing?
He's the same Curdy. I mean, he's doing everything. He's always on the move. He's always on top of it. No job too big, no job too small. Thing that's really neat, we just got done with practice. Coach Barnett addressed the team post-practice, celebrating our 95 Rose Bowl team. And Curdy's been around here so long, the relationships that he shares with our former players, former coaches. Curdy comes up and gives Coach Barnett a big hug.
Yeah, it's great.
So fortunate. And Curdy's doing well. Love him.
Tell him I said hi.
Will do.
All right, Coach, we always like to get our guests out with a little game of three. And I have three quick questions for you. A little bit off the beaten path. We'll go first through third down, and then we get you out of here. So first down, I want to take you back to May of 2024. You're selected to throw the first pitch at Wrigley. How nervous were you, and how do you assess your performance?
I was very nervous for the pitch. I'd assess it as a B+. It was a strike. But singing the seventh inning stretch, different story. That was a bad deal, guys.
By the way, I got to do it as well, and I also graded myself a B+. I got back to my seats, and my son said, no, that's only an American League strike. I give you an absolute C-. Second down, you look at your program and the school that you're at. A rigorous academic school. Last couple of years, more than a dozen Big Ten distinguished scholars just from the football program alone. And David, we're talking about guys taking classes like organic chemistry, genetics and evolution, philosophy of religion. Are you ever just blown away in talking with these young men by not just how good they are on the football field, but how ridiculously smart they are?
Every single day. The conversations that happen at our training table, the intelligence of this team, what they navigate playing at the highest level of college football and earning, a degree from one of the premier institutions in the world. It takes a special young man, and honored to be the person that's got the chance to lead them. But my gosh, I do not envy their class rigor, that's for sure.
No question. All right, third down. You mentioned it. This is the weekend that the 95 Rose Bowl team is honored. What do you think a soon-to-be 11-year-old David Braun was doing on that Rose Bowl day, January 1st, 1996, when Northwestern faced USC?
I was watching the game with my dad. I mean, we're sitting in the living room, and it's funny. I tell this story a lot, but my dad and I watched the Notre Dame Northwestern game at the front end of that season. I'll never forget my dad kind of like, tapped me on the shoulder like, David, this is a big deal, but we took in that game, and my dad being from Ohio, my mom being from Indiana, family that's from Big Ten country, like, Rose Bowl is something you watch every single year. I know the Cats end up falling short, but that was a fun day. That'll be a memory that's etched in my mind forever.
Speaking of family, let's get you out of here on a question related to family. And I take you back to your hiring. You come in as a DC, and less than 6 months later, you're named the interim head coach. Just a couple of weeks later, you're standing in front of guys like me at media days trying to answer questions that, at that point, you really should not have had to answer. And oh, by the way, your wife at that point is what, some 8 months pregnant? You're getting ready for your third child at that juncture. And since then, you win a Big Ten Coach of the Year. You're now on track to get this program to a postseason for the second time in 3 years. Have you and Kristen had the chance to just sit back in some of those quiet family moments, realize what you've done, be not just grateful, but also kind of proud of yourselves in what you've accomplished over the course of the last 2+ years?
Yeah, no, we are grateful. We got 3 healthy kids that absolutely love it here. We came to Northwestern knowing that this was a dream job, coming here as the defensive coordinator. There were some difficult days, difficult weeks, difficult months. All credit to Kristen. Us that are in this, world know that, if you don't have the right wife at home, there's no. I couldn't do what I do without her, and ultimately, God is good. Through some trying times, leaning into my faith, leaning into the people around me, and ultimately remind myself why I got into this. And it's the young men that I get to coach every single day. Honored to be the head coach at Northwestern, and so excited about where this program is today, and staying humble and hungry and focusing on Purdue, but dang excited about where this program's headed as well.
I know David said that the best recruit maybe that Northwestern's gotten recently was Mark Jackson. I think he would probably say the best recruit he's ever gotten was his wife. Yeah. I think all of us can say that. There's no doubt about that. Coach, hey, we really appreciate the time. Look forward to watching you guys against Purdue this weekend as we try to make it 4 in a row for Northwestern. David Braun, thanks for the time, Coach.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Our Gatorade Big Stat has its focus on the Indiana offense, a unit which is the only one of its kind to be ranked among the nation's top 10 in points per game, yards per game, and fewest turnovers committed. Ashley Adamson has more as she catches up with one of the anchors of the Hoosier offensive line, left tackle Carter Smith.
Carter, first and foremost, congratulations on an incredible first half of the season. It has been so fun to watch you guys. We appreciate the time. I know the very first thing that Coach Cignetti said in his Monday presser was that it's time to rip off the rearview mirror and that the total focus is on Michigan State. So I'm not trying to distract you and make you look back, but can I just ask you, how did that win at Oregon on Saturday compared to any other win that you've been a part of in your career?
I think going into it, all of us just wanted it to be another game. It is really special when something like that happens, a win that IU hasn't really had in a really long time, a top 5 road win. They don't come easy for any team. And, we put the time in, we put the work in. I think we all banded together as a team for, as long as we could. We got fall camp, spring ball, summer lifts, everything, correlates into each other, and it all meshes well once the time comes to play the game.
Well, Kurt, to be fair, you said it hasn't happened in a long time. It's never happened that Indiana has knocked off a top 5 opponent, and there were 47 tries before you guys finally did it. You're now at the highest AP ranking in program history at number 3. Coach said a few times in the postgame that he just had a good feeling coming into that Oregon game. Did you guys feel that in the locker room as well?
Definitely. Everyone's in their own headspace, but we all have the same goal. So we went in there, took care of business, did what we had to do, and now it's on to the next one.
The offensive line has been terrific, and I want to ask you about your position in a moment. But when I look back again, this is the last thing I'll ask about Oregon. They had only given up 1 sack all year, and your defense got 6 in that game. I'm curious, as an offensive lineman, like, how fun is that to watch? What goes through your mind when you're seeing your own defensive linemen just dominate like that?
It's a testament to how much time and effort they put into it. I mean, everybody on the defensive line has played phenomenal this season. My roommate Isaiah Jones is going balls to the wall at linebacker, and he's having a great season. And Aiden Fisher is no different. They're both doing their thing. I think it's just a testament to how much they've improved over the offseason. And it's going to keep happening. Just keep your eyes open for it.
Well, and that's, I guess, the next question, because I think it's one thing to overcome adversity. Handling success is a totally another thing. So I imagine that's been a conversation in the meeting rooms this week.
SIG is a big tear off the rear view mirror guy. It's time to move on to the next one. We got the brass spittoon this week. We're excited to play Michigan State at our home stadium. It's going to be a good one this week.
Well, let's talk about the fact that you've got Michigan State next. It's homecoming weekend, as you mentioned. What's the energy on campus like right now?
Everyone's getting back from fall break. Everyone's excited to watch Indiana football. The town has really rallied behind the football team, which is really amazing to see. Being here for about 4 years now, it's something that I haven't really seen in a while. And it just feels good to be wanted, and it makes us want to play as hard as we can.
You mentioned that you've been through a lot of it. You've been through heartbreak and frustration, and now the immediate rebuild and success the last couple of years that I'd say no one, at least on the outside of the walls of that program, would have necessarily predicted. When you look at what's happening now, do you have a different appreciation for it, given that you went through those seasons early on that were really hard and long?
Absolutely. It's hard to get wins. And, my first 2 years here, that was kind of a testament to what it was. 4-8, 3-9 is kind of a rough time. And then being able to stay where you are and be a part of something this big is just so special.
If Coach Cignetti was not coaching football, what job would he be best at instead?
Wow, that is a good question. I would make him the CEO of some financial company, something trading, something on Wall Street, because he would handle business.
He would handle business. You are right. When do you know you're in trouble with Kurt Cignetti?
I would say when he just starts laying into,
It is great to catch up with you, Carter. Thank you so much for making the time. We're excited to have our entire tailgate crew in Bloomington this weekend. Best of luck against Michigan State, and best of luck the rest of the way.
Thanks for having me, Ashley.
Penn State hits the road this weekend. The Nittany Lions will do so without the recently dismissed James Franklin, relieved of his duties earlier this week after 12 seasons at Penn State. Terry Smith will serve as interim head coach for the rest of the season, beginning with Saturday night's game inside Kinnick Stadium. We'll get to the game conversation with Coach Wanstead in just a bit, but Ross, want to get your take on right now, very early, obviously, in the stages of this head coaching search. How quickly do you think Penn State wants to move, and what names are you starting to hear?
Well, yeah, let's be clear, right, Rick? As you mentioned, it's early. It's October. So right now it's the ground level of the search, which is just kind of putting out feelers of who might be interested, creating your list of potential candidates. But look, the person that's probably going to be toward the top of that list is no secret, right? Matt Rule at Nebraska. He's a former Penn State player. He's a really close friend to Penn State athletic director Pat Kraft. But that doesn't mean he just leaped from leaving a really good job, right? He's building Nebraska into a program of its past where annually it competes for championships. We're seeing them improve every year. I assume very soon you'll see Nebraska's administration potentially incentivize Rule to stay, whether that's through a new contract or more resources to the roster. But let's remember, he's already got one of the best contracts in college football. He makes $8.5 million a year. That increases by $1.5 million every year annually to 2028. So he'll be making $11.5 million at that point. So while he's at the top of the list, there's certainly plenty of other candidates, but it's just too early to kind of spotlight our target specific guys.
It is an awfully big ask of Terry Smith, Dave, to take this team into Kinnick Stadium against an Iowa defense that just shut out Wisconsin and looked as good as it had looked all year long. And oh, by the way, Ethan Grunkemeyer set to start, a guy who's never done that before in college after the season-ending injury to Drew Aller.
Yeah, it is. And I know Terry was a high school coach here in Pittsburgh when I was coaching there. I'm good friends with Terry. And he'll get them fired up. He'll get them motivated. But let me tell you what you're dealing with. Keep in mind that James Franklin convinced all these players to come back for another year to try to win the championship. So a lot of these kids, probably half of them, are going to be drafted into the NFL. And so now the challenge is getting ready for a physical game. You got to be all in emotionally. I always say that to play football. So you got to be ready emotionally, and now your agents start calling you. I mean, it's a nightmare for Penn State. The agent, oh boy, you're going to be drafted. Be careful, be careful. So Terry Smith's got a fight job. Get them ready to play a heck of a football team in Iowa, and at the same time keeping their focus and keep the non-football stuff at arm's length, because this is when it could crack.
Yeah, that one's a fascinating matchup. Also fascinated to see Washington and Michigan. This is an absolutely monster game for both programs, especially the Huskies. You go on the road to Ann Arbor, a place that obviously Jed Fish is very familiar with, having been an assistant for Michigan. But, Ross, we brought it up earlier in the show. If DeMond Williams in this offense, if they can find a way to solve that Michigan defense and the Huskies leave Ann Arbor and head back to Seattle with a win, when they get there, they're a team that deservedly is going to be a big part of the playoff conversation.
Absolutely, Ricky. This one does feel really important, especially for the Wolverines. They're a little backed into a corner, right? They got dominated at USC. I don't know that many expected that. I saw Sharon Moore wore to the press conference a blue-collar jacket. Looked like something a car mechanic would wear. He says the message is simple: get back to work. Look, Michigan is not out of the playoff race, and certainly not out of the Big Ten title hunt. Remember, one of their losses is to out of conference to the SEC, Oklahoma. But the Huskies have played really well, and they're right in this thing too, Rick. Like as you said, they have a lethal rushing attack with Jonah Coleman. DeMond Williams has played incredibly well. He's completing 75% of his passes, Coach. 10 TDs, 1 pick. Michigan, as Sharon Moore had said, better get back to work, right? That's the message, because this Husky team is a good one, and one that, as Rick mentioned, looks like a potential playoff team, maybe, if they can pull off this one in the Big House.
Yeah, real quick, I think Wink Martindale at Michigan, he was hitting the mouth last week. They gave up yards, they gave up points, they gave up. It was out of character for them. He's going to get them back ready to go. To me, Washington's going to score points. So Michigan is going to have to strike some plays in the passing game, in my opinion. They're going to have to get Bryce Underwood out there and throw and catch the ball, I think, to be able to score enough points to keep up with Washington. That's the key.
We got about a minute left here to discuss Maryland and UCLA. And right now the Bruins are one of the best stories in all of college football, and one of the biggest reasons, the play of Nico Iamaleava, their quarterback, who weeks has been just nothing short of phenomenal.
He's the key. If you want to beat UCLA, you got to take care of him, run and pass. I would get as many defenders on him as you can and see if they got enough supporting cast to beat him. Maryland, they ran the ball too, and threw it last week, and they didn't get the win. I'm crushed. I truly am.
2 weeks in a row for Maryland, could easily be 6-0 right now, and this is a great battle of freshman quarterbacks, Ross, because or young quarterbacks, I should say. You have Nico Iamaleava, obviously in his first year at UCLA, and Malik Washington, his first year in college at Maryland.
Yeah, I was talking to some of the Nebraska guys that played Maryland last week, and they said Malik Washington was the best quarterback they played this year so far. They were blown away by him. Maryland has a good football team. They are, as Rick said, they could very well be 6-0. They had a 20-0 lead at Washington. They led Nebraska late in the game as well, just to let each of them slip away.
Strap in, boys, because this weekend schedule is going to be something special. For Ross Dellinger and Dave Wanstead, I'm Rick Beazel. Thanks for the hang here on Big Ten Today.